6 game tournament, probably 4-2, maybe if you're lucky, 5-1. If you're unlucky, maybe 2-4, 3-3. Yeah, I mean, it's
Just saying
fine, isn't it?
every single result apart from 0 and 6.
Yeah. Adam
I
doesn't
didn't say.
believe.
Oh,
Sam, you're literally Frodo right now.
He is the hero. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 56 of the Gollum's Gamers podcast, where today we are here with our very first video of the new edition of MESBG. And we are going to be taking a look at what we believe to be the best armies from the good side of the new armies of the Lord of the Rings rulebook. What's looking good? What army should you be looking out for on the other side of the table? Well, that is what we are here to discuss today. But it's worth mentioning here at this point that the new edition has literally only just come out. So the majority of things at this point is all just kind of speculation, really, as nobody's had the time at this point to see, all of the lists and armies in action, which is a perfect segue to let everyone know that on the 4th and 5th of January, the very first weekend of the new year, I'm going to be live streaming what could possibly be the very first tournament ever of the new edition of MESBG. It's called Into the West, which is a really big event, 120 players happening in Cardiff. And I was at the GBHL League finale recently, which was a really great weekend of tournament SBG. So if you do fancy joining me in watching some games of the new edition, please do come and check out the stream. It's the very first weekend of the new year, 4th and 5th of January. So with that out of the way, for the Spotify listener, tonight I'm joined by Ali and Adam. And as always, you can find us on Instagram, Spotify, by following the links in the description down below. And if you do enjoy all of the MESBG content that we do make here, please do subscribe to us here on our YouTube channel. So kicking things off here with our first list, which is Minas Tirith. Now, it's worth mentioning at this point that the three of us each picked our own top 5 lists, essentially, but we haven't ranked them in order or anything. So Minas Tirith here, for example, was in Ali and Adam's top 5 picks, but not in mine. So some of the key takeaways for the list, I guess, to kick things off. First of all, Super Denethor. He's been buffed to absolute extreme measures, so that's really cool to see. Denethor with some buffs. Faramir and Boromir equals good times. They are both pretty good at the moment, which we will talk about. The bonuses sort of from the list itself, from the Minas Tirith list, so you can automatically take priority once per game. So it's like the Palantir rule. I think that's tied to Denethor being alive, I believe, but yeah, you get that once per game. And then also Gondor cavalry within 6 inches of where Faramir begins his move are fearless, and they go up to fight 5 on the charge. So those are the bonuses. Those are the good bonuses from the Legion. Faramir is also fearless, but there's a negative there where he has to charge if he's able to do so. And then also one other thing I noted that's just kind of good about the list in general is that it gives you the option to take Citadel Guard. The shooting's obviously really good with the longbows. They're pretty point sufficient now as well. And they get +1 to wound within 3 inches of Edoras, who you can take in the list as well. So, Ali, this was in your top 5, and Adam, this was one of your honourable mentions. I guess, Ali, why was this in your top 5?
I mean, nearly everything in Minas Tirith has got a buff this edition, to be honest, to start off with. I mean, Denethor went out slightly in points, but he's actually also got 2 might now, which is pretty tasty.
Nice.
And at the moment, we don't have a contest of champions scenario anymore. So if you just want to protect your VPs, you can just put Denethor behind the line. He's D6, so he's not really going to get sniped out. You can just use his might to call some stuff, and you can play him pretty safe. It's also worth mentioning all Denethor, Faramir, and Boromir allowed you to take Citadel Guard, and Denethor also allows you to take Guard of the Fountain Court because they've got the leader specials in that sense. So, basically, Denethor, just covering Denethor at the moment, he's pretty good as a leader in this edition, and for 50 points, and he lets you lead a lot of troops, he still does what he always used to do, really.
Yeah. And then also as well, so like there have been buffs to Faramir. Faramir being fight 6 now is good. He's got some other, interesting rules as well with having free threat resolves and things like that. So he's now sort of really good for the points. And then Boromir as well. So in this list, he can't take the banner though, but obviously everything's fight 4 now in the list as a minimum. So it's a pretty good spot to be. But you don't have to worry about moving your banner around. Like you're just going to send Boromir out to kill stuff. And with Faramir, it's a pretty good spot to be in.
So yeah, Boromir's an absolute murder machine because he gets he's better than he used to be in that sense because he just gets +1 to wound. Who needs a lance when you're just doing that? And like
that's on foot as well.
Yeah, and him not having the banner isn't that big an issue because that's not he's now got a defined role in this list, which is I'm going to point him that way and go kill everything, and there's not much you can do to stop me.
Someone's going to have to get out their Warriors of Minas Tirith with banner, which I'm trying to play.
A lovely model.
Yeah.
So yeah, and because he's got fight 7 naturally now as well. That used to be one of the main advantages of him having the banner, whereas it doesn't need it for that reason. I mean, the banner's still nice, but I don't think you miss it like you probably would have done back in the day.
He's 185 points now compared to
with the horse and shield, yeah.
So,
although again, like Boromir, you probably would still buy the horse and that for, and same with Faramir, but 20 points horses don't mean it's mandatory anymore to get because the points do start to add up once you put 2 or 3 models.
Obviously, like mounted heroes are super, super good. Like they give you so much flexibility, killing power and everything. But think between Boromir and Faramir, you're paying 40 points to mount the 2 of them. Like that is a considerable investment. So,
what one interesting
heroes?
Go.
Mounting heroes is a real decision this edition.
Yeah.
So, just one sec, guys. Ali wrote a blog about this.
Hey! Oh, yes. Yes, he did. Many moons
Ali, can you just plug them a little bit, please?
Yeah, so to be fair, I'm glad you brought it up, not me. But
he's been dying
so this was, I don't know, probably about 4 years ago now. Back when horses won 10 points. Anyone remember that time?
Yes,
no, neither me. But yeah, explaining the situations and advantages of not mounting your heroes. So it's things like you can protect them in the lines, and like they're not going to get swamped as much. You can always get a 4th attack with a spear support pretty much, and so it was basically just highlighting the advantages. And one of the advantages is you save points, and you save even more points now this edition.
Save the points. I believe in the article you used was it Dane on the boar as the example? And obviously was the boar more than 10 points? It wasn't it?
Yeah, the boar was 20 points.
But that was really sort of highlighting the points.
And it's sort of in the list where it came up, it was there because the balance and the way that I wanted to use Dane wasn't actually because Dane's incredibly killy, and same with Boromir actually here because he gets +1 to wound anyway. So usually you'll kill 2 models in combat anyway. So is the extra killing power of the horse always worth it? But yeah, if anyone wants to check out that article, it's somewhere on the GVHL website way back in the day. Most of it is still pretty relevant.
Search Ali King loves dwarves. GVHL, I'm sure it'll pop up.
But yeah, anyway, moving on from Boromir onto Faramir, this guy got a hell of a buff.
He did.
Fight 6 is great, and he's still 3 attacks. It's 2 wounds, 2 fate, but he's got a really good profile for what is a mid-tier points hero at 100.
Yeah, it's 125 points with the horse and
shield and horse. Yeah, and yeah, so he weirdly gets really good when your army breaks.
Yeah, for some reason.
So yeah, the heroic resolve for 3 each turn is handy, but also then he rerolls and he failed to wound, which makes him incredibly killy. He doesn't have the lance anymore, which is his one sort of downside.
And then save the might in the reserves, and then start, combating potentially and killing stuff.
Yeah, and his Wizard's Pupil special rule, because you've got Denethor being able to call priority once turn per game. I can see you saving that for when you know it's the last turn, and then using that, and then suddenly Faramir can be on the objective. Some people, and he goes, "Cool, everyone will get
dominant too. Hold
dominant
ground.
too.
Hold ground.
Hold ground.
You keep it and then give
Or
it to your opponent. It doesn't really matter.
yeah,
Yeah.
or recon. You can sort of like run off, because the thing is, like, just save a point at might, and you can still challenge who moves actually first.
Yeah.
So there's some nice interplay in the specials and the list from there.
Yeah. I mean, he also gets resistant to magic, the new shooter rule as well. So he's sort of like a threat to bow as well, which is, fits with the theme.
Yeah. And then in this list specifically, he also makes sure Knights of Minas Tirith fight 5 on the charge and fearless.
5/5 is
that's
the new
big,
Dragon Emperor, huh? What's that all about?
I know it's a pretty janky the way it works, because you mark where he was at the start of his move to get the buff, as opposed to just if knights are still within 6 inches. But I mean, it makes the Knights of Minas Tirith, who already got a nice buff going up to fight 4, suddenly go, oh wait, we're like arguably the most points efficient cab in the game.
Yeah. Pretty nice responses. Yeah. So, any thoughts from you on this one, Adam? This was one of your honourable mentions, but not quite in your top 5.
Yeah, exactly. I think one thing that we're going to notice from all the lists that we've looked at is anything where there's more options is going to be better, and as a result, generally the buffs aren't as good. So, for example, we'll look at it later. Realms of Men doesn't have so many
Spoilers.
Spoilers. But this as well, this has actually got 3 buffs and probably more options than the majority of lists. Not only, I mean, Ali mentioned that things have got buffs within the list. I mean, Denethor has, Faramir has, Boromir, you could argue, does, because even when he's been charged, even when he's on foot, has +1 to wound now.
Yeah.
Citadel Guard, great, with Edoras as well. Edoras is going to be a big take, I think, in this edition.
He did lose, though, a point of might and march, which were pretty good things about taking him, is that he was a cheap 3 might hero, sort of like Madril. And march.
But there's only 3 ways to take Citadel Guard now. One's Irolas, the other's Denethor. Both of those are in this list. Citadel Guard are like the new Fountain Court Guard, by the way, because they will be taken en masse, I think, with the +1 to wound. +1 to wound is so rare in this edition. Seems like there's a lot of like reroll 1s to wound.
Yeah.
+1 to wound is so good.
Yeah.
And Minas Tirith
especially
used to be Minas Tirith used to be the grindy wounding on 6s list. Now you've got Boromir and Citadel Guard on +1.
You've basically got
a looking good
inch sort of line there with Irolas.
Yeah.
Got +1 to wound on your back rank. Like that is gonna
kill.
Yeah. So I did a quick list for this one, which came up to 650 points, and I wasn't actually going for Boromir because, I mean, if you want to add Boromir in, it's basically this list, and then that becomes your 800-point list, just for those who want to be Boromir fanboys. But it's basically Denethor, Faramir, Edoras as your heroes. You've got 40 models. I've gone for 8 Citadel Guard with Spear, because I don't think you need more than that, like with the way the bubble goes and stuff like that. You've got 6 Knights of Minas Tirith, and then like the rest of it is Warriors of Minas Tirith with shield or shield and spear. But I've also gone for 4 Guard of the Fountain Court in Denethor's warband, because I know they're not what they once were, but having Dominant 2, I think is going to be really handy.
Is it 3 or 6?
The six of Denethor, basically.
Nice.
Which, like you mentioned, if you're playing Hold Ground or like any of the objective scenarios, that's going to actually make a significant difference, and they're not going to run away.
Where you can sprinkle it in, like if you have options in your list to, gain, dominant something, I think if you're not doing it, unless it's like a troll, which is a huge points investment, if you have a way to get it, you should probably do it, far more often than not.
I think the only thing Minas Tirith is missing is Rangers, sort of, in terms of like... That I think that's the thing that you would want.
Everyone's Warriors of Minas Tirith bow are now going to get painted.
No, to put it this way, in this list, I haven't taken any bowmen.
You don't take any. I think the final thing to mention maybe on this one is just that I think talking about March there with Irolas, so obviously that list that you made
doesn't have much.
And from what I've been, when I've been looking at lists and things, it seems harder to fit it in. It isn't every list has a really good hero that's pretty cheap that you're going to take that's got it. Like if you want it, I think a lot more lists are going to be taking a captain or something.
However, with the current 6 scenarios we have, you don't need March like you did last edition yet. You haven't got your divide and conquer, or you need to run to the middle so much and stuff like that.
I would assume though, like
it's still handy, but
I'd assume though, looking at the big picture of the edition, once we have all the scenarios that we're going to have, that it's probably still going to be as valuable as it always has been. So.
I mean, essentially, because I did think about it, the main difference that happens is this becomes a 700-point list, and I put a captain in.
Sure.
That's kind of like
the numbers are lower. So
it's still 40 models at that point.
Sure.
But like, as in, that's what I mean. Because I mean, 40 models at 650, and I think in the new edition with what feels like a points inflation is going to be pretty solid.
That's also the thing to mention is that sort of like the points to model ratio is sort of just off, and it's not what we've known for the last number of years at least. So when you're writing lists and things, it's something to consider. And until we've had a number of tournaments and things and seen how it plays out, we don't know exactly what average model counts and things are going to be. So maybe we'll bring back the model count stats for the GBHL 100 previews so we can get some data on that. Who knows? But okay, let's leave it there for our first list, Minas Tirith. And let's move on to the Defenders of the Hornburg, which was a pick from myself and Ali in our top 5, but not in Adam's. So kicking things off here, Helm and Hera equals good. They're pretty good. Or are they? We shall discuss. Rohan infantry gain the dominant 2 special rule. All Rohan infantry, that's also heroes as well. That's very good. Infantry warriors, not heroes, reroll all 1s to wound. That's nice. And then Helm has like an instill fear sort of rule. If everyone knows what instill fear is, where like models run away, like they take a courage test and they have to move away. He's got a rule that's like that when he kills an enemy hero or monster. That's what activates that, which I think is cool, not just tying it to a once per game thing, because there's a lot more of those once per game things this edition, which I like, but it's cool that they've done something else with this. So but Ali, this was in your top 5. What do you think about this one?
I think this is arguably the best list in the game, potentially.
That is a
sort of lower point.
That is a hot take. Ooh, damn. This wasn't in Adam's top 5.
Yeah. And I have a feeling why it's not. And then, so actually, I'll let Adam sort of explain why it wasn't in his top 5.
Go on, Adam. What do you think?
So, giving Ali the opportunity to counter, obviously, for me, the best thing about the list is actually the fact that if you have Helm and Hera combined, it's like you're just deleting your hero because you can't strike against them.
Against
that's
Hera,
really, really big.
Yeah.
Because Hera obviously has the Bride of Death rule. Really, really good. They auto-delete. It's like having the Goblin King and Gollum, but on crack.
I mean, Gollum has the ring, so he can kind of like, teleport through stuff, but sure.
But this is even better because you do way more. Like Helm is so strong, and Hera, of course, is also strong.
Yeah.
The thing I've got against this is it's got that crappy little reroll 1s to wound. I mean, but half the list in the game have that.
Yeah.
I think that's such a weak.
Why not just keep special strikes in the game and then we do it ourselves?
Special strikes were only complicated for people who can't read.
Shots there from Adam.
Fact.
You've just upset half of the Gollum's gamers.
I know. Yeah. The thing that's stopping me from putting this top 5, I think it's a really good list, mainly because of Dominant 2, is the fact that Helm is unable to lead troops. That for me is my issue.
And this is where you don't take Helm, because he's not needed in the list and he costs a butt ton of points.
Sorry, to finish on Helm, I mean, so disregard Helm when we start talking about without Helm.
So something we need to mention as well is all of this is completely points dependent. So in the GBHL, we play, I say we, but I'll continue saying we play between 450 up to 1,000 points. I'd say the average is probably 650, 700.
Yeah.
650.
Yeah.
I'd say the average will work out 650 to 700.
By average, I mean sort of modal, right? So
Yeah.
the most frequent events probably about 650.
Mm-hmm.
With of course Ardacon as well being 650. So actually, a lot of what we're saying, I think we've come at this from different points of view in terms of points, but that Minas Tirith list we just looked at can be probably scaled quite well. So then I'll pass on to Ali here. What do you think about this list and its scaling?
So I think it does well pretty much all the way up until I reckon 800 points. And then it's probably easier if I explain why I think it's good actually first, because then sort of the scaling makes sense. So I mean, I'm not taking Helm really unless I go high points, because he's 180 points and he doesn't actually contribute that much to the army. Yeah, he'll hit things hard and he'll kill things, but he doesn't justify his points cost in this list for me. This list is you build it like a semi-horde, which everyone has dominant to, and then you just win the objectives everywhere. So when I look at like the army list that I made, so this is 650 points again. I've just gone Hera, Olwyn, and a Captain of Rohan as my heroes, and then I've got 40 models. I'm essentially going, not quite, but almost 1/3 Warriors of Rohan with shield, 1/3 Warrior of Rohan with throwing spears and shield, and then 1/3 Vigors of Rohan, who do still get +1 fight value from Hera being the leader in the new edition. So it's there going, once again, we've hit quite a solid model count. You've got quite a good skirmishy army because you've got 13 throwing weapons, or I mean, in the list that I've made you do, and sort of 9 bows, and it's just there going like you can shoot people to death, you can skirmish them to death, and then you got a lot of models. It still hit reasonably hard actually. The reroll ones isn't amazing, like it's not a +1 to wound, but it does help tick over that wound tally. But it's just the fact that you're just going to be sitting on these objectives with 2 or 3 people when you start with more models and stuff like that.
You do start with more models. Everything's dominant too. That's really good. But all of those models are fight 3.
Yeah.
And they are all D5.
Yeah.
So there's no access to fight 4 in this.
There is. The riders are very on the charge.
The riders are shot, but there's no access to the infantry in your line being fight 4. So to most things, you are probably going to die pretty quick. So you're hoping to not sit on objectives, and then you're looking really good.
Yeah, and I think the thing is you'll be able to having used Phaedra's Guard, which this isn't quite as throwing spear and shooting spam, but it's got other things going with it instead. Like you'll be able to whittle down numbers enough, especially in this edition, and you've got the mobility, and having like nearly like 9 cav just charging into people still at fight 4.
At fight 4, that's nice.
You've got. I don't think it would be the easiest list to use, though, I will say. Like, it's not like Dragon Emperor has been in the last edition where you can pick it up and click and point and you'll win 70% of your games. This will take skill to use, but I think like Hera's great. She's really good value for it.
Yeah, Hera is crazy. I mean, like just touching on Helm again. So like there might be some people thinking, oh, but like Helm seems pretty good potentially. But like one of the biggest drawbacks in his profile, obviously in this list he can't lead troops, but also none of his heroics affect anyone else. So he gets free heroic combat if he charges, but then models in his combat won't be able to move on anyway. Like only he's affected by his own heroics, which is a major drawback. So even if you're investing the points in him and say Hera and say you don't take Olwyn because you've got those 2 and they're expensive, so you take a captain, well, then you've only got 5 might and you've taken Helm, so it's probably going to be slightly higher points. So that's not really too great. And obviously Helm's got loads of killing power and everything like we mentioned, but he doesn't really slot within an army that well unless you know you're going to be playing something that's got lots of heroes that you want to kill and take out. It's odd to find his position, really.
I will say, actually, comparing the lists that I've written, because I voted them at different times, but I do prefer my Minas Tirith 650 point to this one, actually. But I do think we haven't seen it really in action yet, but I think dominant 2 stats
There's a
are
chance.
going to have a
Yeah.
huge impact on the strength
And
of
it's
lists.
just blanket. And like considering we've
Yeah.
seen lots of lists, so far just looking in the books where you get dominant within range of something, either 6 or 3 of the hero, or there's some other condition. But to just have it blanket on your entire army is just absolutely crazy. So
it's really good. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I think it's going to leave it there for the defenders of the Hornburgs. We shall move on to the army of Edoras, which was in my top 5 as well as Adam's. So army of Edoras, new heroes equals good ? I've put the question mark there to try and spur some debate on these new heroes because I'm not quite sure how I feel. There's been lots of discussion, but we shall debate. Access to Fight 4, which obviously the previous list did not have. So, it did have through the riders just to please Ali there. But it had access to Royal Guard, so natural Fight 4. And then the special rules for this one. So once per game, if your general has charged, all friendly models re-roll all fail to wound rolls within 12 inches. And then you also have fearless troops when charging terror-causing models within 6 inches of a friendly hero who has charged in that turn. So you've basically got the big war cry. And
Gothmog's Time of the Orc.
That's sort of the main, the main buff. But the heroes are sort of the main because all of the heroes basically in this list, other than like the captain, are brand new profiles. So, Adam, why did this one make it into your top 5? I've done a fair amount of list building with this one, but what do you think?
I think there's so many options in this list. It scales really well. All of the heroes are really cool. So we've got obviously Helmhammer and the big boy.
Yeah.
But actually, Haleth, Prince of Rohan, and Freyalaf are really solid.
Really good.
Really solid heroes. The only issue I have with Freyalaf, I think, is getting D5, but he is pretty decent. He's like, I don't know you guys have seen the film, right?
No.
I have.
Ali has.
Okay, so
no spoilers
Freyalaf,
though for people who maybe haven't.
Freyalaf reminds me of, he's just sort of, he's like a poor man's Aemir in terms of what happens in the film and what happens in his rule set. However, it's literally parallel. The way I'm not going to go into it. People.
There's a thing about being first marshals, I think. Of the Riddermark.
First marshal of the Riddermark, but first of the.
he is the nephew of the king as well, so
yeah, it's just so parallel.
Yeah.
However, he is good. He gets like this lovely little buffing rule with Hera, where he gets a bit of a master of battle going on. Hera, I think, is decent value. I think she might be the new Dernhelm. Thing is, Dernhelm has been absolutely nerfed in terms of points. She's pretty expensive now, but Hera is pretty solid. It's that lower middle tier of hero, but she's very good for her points in my opinion. Olgin's brilliant. Obviously, she was in the last list we looked at. This list has so much going on. So many options. It scales really well. Yeah, and I like the buffs as well. The once per turn game, once per game rule. What it means is you can finish a game quickly if you have to. So if you're in a good position and you want to just end it, you can. Also, it gives you choices when your heroes all go in. You've got this one turn where you just go nuts. I think this is a really it's like an average list because it's got all the profiles basically, but with really good bonuses as well. So you've got options and you've got good buffs. So I think it's a good list.
I was mentioning to Sam that I wasn't sure. So this is basically going to be my new project that I'm currently painting up. And I felt that it was good, but I was like, is it that good? Like, are the heroes that good? Like, they do have good rules. They're sort of, but they are pretty expensive as well. Like, Frelaf's like 120. Like, he's not your Hurin, sort of like 90 points mounted. You're sort of always going to take Frelaf with Hera. Hera's another 90. And then if you're taking, say, Big Helm, he's 185. If you suddenly want to fit in March, then like you've got to downgrade him to Haleth, who's really good. To fit that in. So there are lots of options.
But Elliot, this is where you're making the mistake, is you're counting their points with a horse. Like, you don't need to give Hera a horse. She's better on foot, arguably.
She's got a 12-inch horse on.
Yeah, but I mean,
in charge.
But
Pretty
her
nice.
special rule is if you're in combat with one person, you go up to 3 attacks and reroll wounds. Like that's a waste if you're on a horse, really, because sort
Well, if
of
you're not
like
on the horse, you're wasting the 12-inch move of your horse. So
yeah. But remember,
as he comes up,
it's costing you 20 points now,
of
which
course,
as
yeah,
we mentioned earlier. So it that's one of those heroes where I go, you know what? Actually, if I'm taking Hero, it's because I'm taking Freelaf. I don't want Freelaf to get his Master of Battle 4+.
yeah,
Mm.
Yeah. The thing
So,
I'll say about the list, just because I interrupted you already, is
carry on.
I do like the list. I just don't know how good it actually. I think it's one of the most interesting lists because, as Adam said, you've got loads of options and you can do quite a lot of different things with it. Like Leaf is really cool in this list.
Yeah, Leaf is awesome.
But are you gonna? That's what I'm saying. Like with
but you can't necessarily do everything.
That's what I mean.
Which is why it's harder to work out how strong this list is than some of the others where it's a bit more simplistic.
Yeah.
But Helm's great for this points value. This version of Helm is. Just for people at home, if you get time, compare this Helm to the Wraith Helm, and then you'll probably understand more why I don't.
You say the Wraith Helm?
Yeah.
What, the Black Dart Helm? Like what?
Wait, that's
Elliot,
what
you need to seal the film, man.
Oh, okay.
It's also the profile's called Helm Wraith of the Hornburg or whatever it is, isn't it? The other one.
He becomes a ring wraith.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
It does in the computer game anyway. But no, Halif is a pretty solid hero for his points.
Yeah.
Hammer's pretty interesting as well.
I think I'm probably the lowest on Hammer, I think, out of the lot.
Yeah, he's the less obviously good, but again, I wouldn't be taking him with a horse. So on 70 points, he's quite cheap. He's a bowman. Like
got defense.
He gives you rerolls when striking, although weirdly it costs him a point of will.
There's just lots of other good options. Yeah,
but that's actually fine because no one's going to focus their magic on Hammer, are they?
Yeah. No, my instinct with this is you're probably either going big boy Helm and one or two of the others, or you go for all the sort of medium heroes.
With
kind of thing.
I
didn't get around to building a list with this army because Rohan does have the awkwardness, and because you don't have the spare points as much in this list of you only get 1/3 throwing spears.
Yeah, this list does creep up in points. Like, because you've got access to Royal Guard. Oh, I'll take 1 or 2 mounted Royal Guard as well, and then you mount a couple of your heroes, and suddenly like the numbers do start to drop. So
I do think this one is I mean, you can probably do it at lower points, but to do what you want with the list, it's probably 800 points.
And that's what I've sort of done so far. So, see. Also worth mentioning is that this helm has the good heroic combat, which he does not need to charge to do. So he's going to be running around killing stuff. But I guess with the other helm, you've paid a premium for the fight 7, like we were saying, Ali. So with the new changes to strike, like fight 7 is really, really good. But obviously, this helm at fight 6 is still a strong place to be. So,
and he gets +1 to wound, which the other helm doesn't.
Yeah, he's mounted.
But this helm's better at just chomping through troops. The other helm is clearly there to punch a hero.
Yeah,
as Adam outlined.
Mighty blow. Okay. So really looking forward to this one. This is my new project. So okay. We will move on from the army.
Really fun list, I think.
Edoras, to the Men of the West. So I had this in my top 5, as did Adam, and Ali had this as his honourable mention. So this one has a wide selection of heroes. So obviously, if you're familiar with the Men of the West list previously, it's like outside the Black Gate, there's like Aragorn and the Fellowship and all that sort of thing. You can also take Gwahir and Eagles in this legion, which is pretty cool. And in terms of the buffs of the list, so everything gains Fearless while Aragorn is alive, which is cool. Infantry within 3 inches of a friendly hero gain Dominant 2, which is obviously another way of getting that into your list. That's really, really strong. And then also there's a once per game sort of buff that you can call, where you get +1 fight value to everything within 6 inches of Aragorn that isn't an eagle, and rerolls 1s to wound. It is worth mentioning as well about the eagles that you can only take eagles if you don't have any cavalry models, and the only ones that you can take are horses for your heroes. So it's basically saying if you want to mount a hero, you can't take any eagles. So
just think all those points that you save on not buying a horse gets you a free eagle.
gets you Guahir. Boom. Well, I think you can only include the eagles in Guahir's Warbank, can't you? So you kind of have to take Guahir first. So
Gets you half a Guahir.
yeah, halfway there. So we all thought pretty highly of this one. What do we think?
Solid, isn't it? I think, again, we're choosing it because there's so many options in the list. I'm not going to talk a lot about this. All I want to say is some people will overview the fact that Gandalf does not have his staff. Okay? Now, let's think. I just want to say this is not as bad as it sounds because Gandalf obviously is a great combating dude now in the new rules. But because he gets the reroll, arguably, Gandalf players, are they going to play him really aggressively where he goes into combat, in which case he's probably not going to be able to cast every turn anyway because you don't win every move off? Or is he going to be a backline caster? I'd go for the former rather than the latter. So if you're going to play aggressively with Gandalf nowadays, I think you're going to struggle to use his will and use the free casting dice every turn. What do you guys think?
I would say I go for option 3, which is I
Yeah,
don't take
it.
Gandalf in the list
Yeah.
because there's better things.
Absolutely. But I actually don't think it's as bad as people might initially think.
No.
That's what I'm saying.
I just think though that if you're going for the version of it's like, oh, okay, he might not cast, so I'm sort of fine with that anyway because I'm playing him in a more aggressive role. Well, then why not save some points and take something cheaper that can, fill.
It's not necessarily more killy than like I don't know, Aemir or Gimli.
And I think even in like the Minas Tirith list, obviously not that specific one, but like I'm not even sure if there is. I'm thinking of like Minas Tirith from the old edition, but like, is there a list you can take Gandalf and Faramir? It's like if you could take either or, and you think, oh, Gandalf might not end up casting that much because I'm going to play aggressively. Well, then why would you not just take Faramir instead?
I think the thing is, for the same points as Gandalf in this list, you get Legolas and Gimli.
Yeah.
At which point, magic
Gandalf
is nice, but if you're not doing it every turn,
it's not as good now anyway. And like, he's only going to get 6 spells, which sure is, but like, let's say you play Blinding Light or you play Shooting and you want to use Blinding Light, like you only get 6 spells. Sure, you get the reroll, but like, and that's only if you spend 1 will per turn. So,
but no, this list has got, it's got quite a bit of choice in your heroes. Legolas, everyone's creaming over him this edition.
They are.
Like, Aemir is pretty good this edition.
Aemir is pretty good, I'm not going to lie. 12 force fight 6, like 3s everywhere for 135 points. Like, he's going to
110 if you don't take the horse.
Well, with the fucking horse.
But yeah, no, Aragon's also pretty good this edition. This is probably going to be a higher point list just because you got the big names kicking around. But people are going to notice a trend, but their friendly infantry models getting dominant 2 when it were in 3 inches of the big heroes as well.
Yeah,
it's just really good.
Yeah.
Auto passing or courage test while Aragon's alive. I don't know if that'll be as good as it would have been last edition because I don't think Terror's going to be as prevalent, but it's still really handy to have. And then the fight value and the wound buff. It's once per game, but hey, I'll take it.
Yeah. This is also pretty nice because you don't have to fit in something that has March because Aragorn has March. That is very nice.
Yeah.
You can call it for free, so that is actually pretty nice.
Here's a question for you guys, actually. Are you going for the Eagles or are you mounting Aragorn and
I'm mounting Aragorn.
Cheeky.
I think you just go for Guai here, no extra Eagles.
Yeah, I'm assuming you got the points. It's going to go quite high once you got Guahir, but I would take Guahir rather than a horse.
Guahir's so good now. Guahir was good before, but now he's got an extra attack.
Also, this is actually something worth mentioning here as well to sort of help with your guys' argument, is that Guahir would get, so don't monsters get dominant something?
True.
They get dominant.
Guahir's dominant 4, actually.
Dominant 4, yeah. So, and your leader gets, dominant 3? Does your leader get?
Yeah, but Guahir wouldn't be a leader, would he? Because doesn't it have
to? So you still get Guahi's dominant 4 in his profile, and you get
yes,
being dominant 3. So
yes,
really good because Guahi wouldn't be your leader. So
yeah, but no, I think it's a good list, but it's a higher point list.
yeah,
which is why I only put it in as an honourable mention, is because I didn't think it had quite the scope as some of the other lists at common points levels we play here at the UK.
Yeah,
at the UK, in the UK,
in the UK, and also you can go Warriors of Minas Tirith with Rohan. So
yeah, so you get fight for and cheap troops, which combine quite well.
Yeah, so that's good. But yes, an interesting list. So we shall move on though to somewhat of a similar list, just with like a different makeup of heroes. It's from a different setting in the film. So, but it's another cool one. It is the Defenders of the Pelennor. And all three of us picked this in our top 5. So that is a first for the episode. So just like the previous one, it does have a very wide selection of heroes. If you have the army book, I'm sure you've seen. This list compared to the last one, though, does have cavalry options in your troops. Obviously, you could mount Aragorn in the previous one and you have the Eagles, but yeah, you've got access to horses on your troops in this one, which is really good. You've got that on the Minas Tirith and the Rohan side. You have Gambling 6-inch banner, which is obviously a specific thing for a particular hero in the list, but I think that's a really key point to sort of, you've got a 6-inch banner on your battle line. So his banner's seen the changes there. You don't get the might every turn, but you could still get the might if you're good at rolling 6s. But yeah, you have a 6-inch banner now, which is really strong. Just like the Minas Tirith list, you also get the +1 to wound, which is obviously just a really, really good bonus if you take Edoras. I think for the points, lots of people are going to be trying to fit him in, so that's really good. And also the Citadel Guard shooting is just really strong with the longbows. And the sort of special rule, the only special rule for this list, as it is so extensive with the amount of options, is that every hero gets a free heroic combat once per game, which is nothing to sort of sniff at. Like it is good. Maybe people want to go hero heavy to take advantage of that. I think that might be a bit of a trap. I think you just maybe take a couple free combats and then try and sort of build out a more regular kind of list. I think with this one, as there are just lots of really good options. But what do we think on this one?
I mean, the special, as you mentioned it, like you could actually build this as an all-hero army if you wanted. And then you've got your own sort of pseudo Riders of Theoden. But anyway, like being able to call heroic combats when you want. It's not just like in this turn everyone can call it free heroic combat, but everyone basically gets a 3 point of might almost. There's one way you could look at it. It's really good, and I mean the higher points you go, the more you should get out of it because you got more heroes on the board. Once again though, it's mainly the variety you've got here, and there's also, I mean, once Elliot realised what move value of Army of the Dead are,
I had no idea. There is definitely going to be someone watching this not looked at the Predator arrow yet, and they are move 12. No, they are move
8.
Yeah,
which is pretty good, and they'd be really good little objective holders, or like because they get to just move through terrain and like jump over things and rolling 6s automatically now. So they're quite good in small numbers if you want to hold up terrain, but also if you've got a front line of Army of the Dead and then a back line of Warriors of Minas Tirith, that's a hell of a line to try and break through. You've got a terror causing D8 front line, which will win most things on 4s or 5s, and then you've got fight 4 still from the back rank.
Now, the only thing to mention about that is that obviously that sounds really good. The Warriors of the Dead are very expensive though, but you do fall into an issue with this list that if you don't want to go that route, as good as it seems, like if you want higher numbers, you're sort of at a bit of a struggle to do it unless you take Gandalf the White, or you want to go, say, Irolas and a Captain of Minas Tirith, because the only infantry that you can take other than the Warriors of the Dead are the Warriors of Minas Tirith, and they can only be led by Gandalf, Irolas, and Captains of Minas Tirith. So having enough infantry there, you would have to take you have to take both Irolas and the captain to have 24 warband slots for just like regular troops, right? Or you take Gandalf and then one of the two. So it's just odd. Like
you are oddly forced into almost taking Army of the Dead because you probably want
the other
Aragorn or Legolas at least in your list. I mean, that's not a bad thing. by any means. But it does a bit like quite a few of these lists. Gets a bit janky when you're trying to work out what you want to take and what you don't want to take.
It's just because the Warriors Minas Tirith are the only infantry that you can take. Like you sort of have to have enough that can lead them. So
I haven't worked out the points for this, but I reckon at 800 you could get a pretty solid list if you went Aragon, Edoras, and like Aemir. If you maybe not even Aemir, but like Aemir, you get like your cavalry contingent, and then Aragon and Edoras, you just basically get your fighting line.
It's just the models though. So like,
actually, instead of Aemir, you probably go gambling with the 6-inch banner.
Yeah, but like you're only getting with that 12 Warriors of Minas Tirith, and even if you take 12 Warriors of the Dead, which is a lot of points, you've then only got 24 troops plus a few heroes. 800 points, that's like 30 models. So
I mean,
it's tough.
Yeah, you'll be a lower model count army list if you want to go that late. The other option is you don't go. You don't have to take Aragon, do you?
No, but if you don't go Aragon, what do you take then? Yeah,
like you probably go Legolas.
So you go
if you want it. At that point, I would go probably Aemir and
more Warriors of the Dead. Yeah, it's just from when I was playing around, it was a little bit.
Yeah, it gets a bit finicky. The thing is, if you're going Aragon, he's a 6-inch banner, so you don't really need gambling. If you don't go Aragon, I would probably go for gambling, so you get a 6-inch banner that way.
Wait, this is Aragon Strider though.
Strider, not King Lesser. Ignore me. It's because we were just looking at Lesser. Yeah, so still go gambling.
Go gambling.
There's even almost an argument to go for Legolas instead of Aragon.
You can take him as the leader. I did that.
Yeah, no, that's what I.
Yeah, he's on foot though, but it's fine.
So yeah, when I was building a list, I can't remember if I saved this one. So yeah, I ended up going.
Stalling hard right now. Jesus Christ.
So at 700 points, I got 40 models, and I went. So Legolas, Irolas, and a Captain of Minas Tirith. So I had basically 15 Warriors of the Dead, 8 Citadel Guard with Spear, and like 12 Warriors of Minas Tirith and 2 Knights of Minas Tirith.
Actually that good? See, like it seemed, but like the heroes just like you've got no threat. Like sure, the line's really good.
But the troops, the threat, and Legolas is quite good at then taking out the horse. Because most heroes are still going to struggle to kill the Warriors of the Dead. But I mean, I do think I would rather go higher points and then you slightly like you go for a bit of a tougher hero somewhere in there.
Like gambling or something. But
I quite like Aemir in this list actually.
Yeah, I would like to maybe get the newer Aemir model and try and run him this edition because he does look really, really good.
I do think this is the list you probably would be more likely to take Gandalf. Just because one, he's not bad, as Adam said, in combat and with the staff, as in he still has it, but he also gives you that flexibility with the troop options that you're not so limited on warbands.
Yeah, you could take Gandalf, Irolas, you can take as many Warriors of Minas Tirith as you want, and then if you take one of the Fellowship, you can then take
Legolas.
Some Warriors of the Dead. Yeah, you take Leggy, you get some Warriors of the Dead. So maybe that's
question: why does Gandalf still have his staff in this list?
Because in the books he doesn't get it broken.
Staff already been broken in the film.
Right.
It's fine.
But this is a film book, isn't it?
Well, they clearly didn't see the extended edition.
Okay, but they did for Men of the West.
Well, I would say there's a fraction point of time where you could argue Rohan is on the battlefield at the same time Gandalf still has his staff.
He's got you there, Adam.
The horn is immediately after it gets broken.
Yeah, they just rolled badly on their Maelstrom.
Yeah, sure.
Because that's why they arrived a bit late to the battle. Because basically,
with all of the might in the world,
they kept on rolling ones.
Hey, Theoden just made a tactical decision for dramatic effect.
Yeah,
fair enough. So I think I'll do it for the Defenders of the Pelennor. Kind of similar to the previous list, lots and lots of choices. It's going to take a while to sort of see what the best ones are, what's most optimal, and all that sort of thing. But a very interesting time to be in for sure. So we will move on to the next list, which is Ride Out, which was in mine and Adam's top 5, but not in Ali's. So the takeaways from this one: so you reroll ones in the dual roll. So for every model in the list, you just reroll ones in the dual roll. You also have the Gowning 6-inch banner, putting that in there again because that does pair quite nicely with the previous rule, rerolling ones in the dual roll, and more stuff is in the banner, so that's good. Everything is fearless, which is very nice. Everything gets +1 strength on the charge, which is really nice. So strength for in warrior cav, and then your hero's going up strength 5, which is nice. And then once per game, you can call the rule, and all friendly cavalry cause terror for that turn. So I don't know whether who to
Don't start with me.
I don't know who to start with here. I mean, you had the chance to counter Adam previously, so I do almost want to start with you here, Ali, just to make things fair, you know. So let's hand over to Ali.
I mean, I feel like I need to start off by being positive.
And then you need to end on a positive note.
Yeah, so I mean the problem is okay, you've got Legolas is good. The re-rolling ones during a duel in which you charge sounds great. And isn't it just makes you more reliable? You've got gambling in the list with a 6-inch banner, which with your cav makes you more reliable. You're fearless. And I wish the you being cause terror was just a general rule in this list
I think it maybe should have been. Yeah, that is a shame. I don't know why.
But it's probably the worst mounted Rohan list. But I mean, viewers may have already worked out. It's not the list I wasn't happy about this going at the expense of
Ali, so.
one of my others. So, but they may have been able to tell. But the single reason why is when a friendly cavalry model moves, it must charge if able. All mounted armies, biggest advantage is their mobility and being able to skirmish. This means you have no control on that anymore. And yeah, you may still hit slightly harder, more reliably, but you're not hitting where you want to, and you're not maximizing your damage. And for that reason,
I'm out.
Yeah.
You had the perfect opportunity.
I was going to do it
here, isn't it?
So not a fan. Yeah, the charging rule is a big disadvantage. I'm not saying it's not, but Adam, do you have a rebuttal there for Mr. King?
Yeah, I think that's fair, but I think you got to take this at high points, and I think you got to spam Riders of Rohan. And what you do is you kite. You've got Legolas mounted. You only have to charge if you're within 10 inches.
Yeah, which makes kiting very difficult.
You must have to stay 16 inches away.
Yeah, you kite for a bit. You know what I mean? You got March. You kite for a bit.
There's only so much board.
No, I agree. You kite for a bit and then you just go in. And that turn you go in, everything's got +1 strength. If I'm right in remembering, Rise of Rohan got up to fight 4, strength 4 on the turn they charge. Everything's fearless. So there's an argument to not go for Roll Guard. You get more numbers in a list which is normally quite expensive.
Why can't you do that in any of the other mounted Rohan lists?
Well, they're not fearless. I think there's something to be said for fearless because Rise of Rohan being picked out. I mean, I know things like Spectres are different now, so it's not on courage, but having Rise of Rohan who can be fearless, just be there all game, there is something to be said for that because you can now use them as objective holders without actually being too nervous about them running. And then you've still got a really solid core of Aragorn third and Legolas in the middle. I do think this is a very high points.
Yeah, I think it is very high points. Like, I was actually thinking that you run it more Roll Guard because they do get the 5/5, don't they, on the charge? Because Theoden's a thing.
Yeah.
Don't they? Yeah. So they get that, but then you're not maximizing the fearless rule. So that is a very valid point. You could stack more Riders of Rohan. But yeah, you kind of need to be in a place where you can take all the heroes and then Also get these support account.
Yeah. The problem, like with sort of the way that you're imagining playing Adam is, I can just chuck one cavalry model, and it will pull three of your guys off. At any point. And yeah, you're not going to run away, but you're also not going to be stood on that objective. It's sort of, you're just forcing people, because bearing in mind, I could just put a model on the edge of terrain as well, and within the terrain on the edge, and then you're stuck in the wood for 2 turns, and it's such a limitation, and all the other rules are nice, but it stops you doing and playing this list how you want to. A good player will be able to pick apart that for that reason.
So you could. What I will say is, go on, Elliot.
No, I was going to say that if you are on an objective that you have to not run off, you can dismount at the end of the game, and then you don't have to jump. But...
Oh yeah, but it's not just the end of the game, and you don't want to be dismounting. Is that really?
There is something you can do if you need to not run or something. But yeah, sure. Go on, Adam.
So actually, I think something that the rules writers have done really well with is they've actually made pretty much all of the Rohan lists, in my opinion, maybe apart from the 2 we've already talked about. So Rise of Theoden, Rise of Aemir, Ride Out, they've made them all really solid. The reason I went for this one, I do shout out for Rise of Aemir, because Aemir gets free combats as well.
It's really good.
That's one I quite like. The thing I like about Ride Out is just any list that can take Legolas, in my opinion, in this edition. If you take Legolas and all Rise of Rohan, you've got a serious shooting army. Bear in mind, nowadays, you're going to get fewer armies with shooting, or less blinding light, or you're going to get armies which have lower defense because they've taken shooting. So you'll be able to take a lot of shooting. You'll be able to take advantage of that with this list, I think, until someone catches you out.
But for me, it just comes down to, I would agree, but you can't take advantage of your shooting because one person moves within 10 inches, and then you've got a big block.
We've acknowledged it's a problem.
But I'm just sort of saying, because you're
then
just
you
briefly. But no, because you've charged into it, because you have to charge.
But Legolas can still.
So if you lose prio, you move, and then someone moves within 10 inches of you. So next turn they're like, "Oh, you have to charge," but then you just kill that model in the shootout.
Oh yeah, but that's relying on stuff, and you having to constantly retreat. You just put enough models there, and then it's not an issue. I mean, for me, out of the ones that you mentioned, it's the weakest for that sole reason. Legolas is great, but he's not that good.
But Fearless is a thing. Fearless, board wide Fearless is real.
It's good. It was close for me. This wasn't my number 1 pick. I basically wanted to get one of the mounted Rohan lists. This was the one I chose.
I would have put Rise of Theoden in because it basically does what it did last edition.
They're all.
No, it doesn't though, because you don't have Daewine and Dernhelm is much reduced.
Oh yeah, I just think it's better though than this one.
I genuinely think there's an argument for Rise of Aemir. Actually,
yeah, Riders of Aim. I think they're
not as one of the best lists though for me.
No, but it's definitely in the mix for mediocre, which it never was.
But we're not doing the most mediocre list of armies.
In your opinion, this is a subjective matter. Okay, so
comment below. Who do you agree with, me or Adam?
We need to not inflate Ali any more than he already is, folks. So. Type carefully. Okay, we will leave it there for Ride Out, and we shall move on to another one of Ali's picks. Oh god, I should have skipped this one. We have the Realm of Men, which was only picked by Mr. King. So the Kings of Men, their value is pretty good. They look pretty nice, the profiles. There are faction buffs to consider when list building. So each of the different factions of men has a different buff. So when list building, you can take all those into account, try and think of different options and combinations that you can take. And you can also take unnamed heroes, although they're not called unnamed heroes. They have a really long and complicated way of explaining it in the actual rule. But anyway, you can basically take unnamed heroes, so captains and that sort of thing, for those factions that you do include the King of Men for. So what do you think about this one? I guess we'll hand over to Ali first. You thought this was an interesting one.
Yeah, so one, I do think it's a genuinely very solid list, purely because you can I mean, you can still ally. And like just off the top, Kings of Men are really solid as a profile. For 75 points, obviously you can mount them, give them lances and stuff, and they go up in points. But they're fight 6, which is great for a 75-point hero. They've got 2 fate, 2 might, 2 will, so they're pretty solid in those regards as well. And because they're quite customizable, if you go, I just want a free might one, just as a might caddy at the back of the line, that would be your Minas Tirith guy. You can do that. You can go, I want a more killy one. There's a couple with 3 attacks. I think it's Dale and Arnor. But I mean, it's the fact that so you don't really need your named heroes because you've got those guys, and the Kings of Men have, but they have Strike, March, and Resolve, which 2 of the best sort of heroics you're probably looking for. And
it's the 3 best heroics in this edition, I reckon.
Yeah. But yeah, so you don't need your named heroes. You've kind of got what you want really already. But then once you just think about like, oh, Numenor's really like cool now. They're fight 5 and they're like strength 4. It's a shame that they can't have a banner or cavalry. Like as a pure. Oh wait, no, I can just ally them into like Rohan or whoever's cheap or like Minas Tirith, and then suddenly you go, I've got a nice D7 Minas Tirith shield walling front line with your fight 5 strength 4 back line. And like because the kings again, you can take them cheap, you can take a few of them if you want. So I made a list. Let's have a look what it was. So 700 points. I've got 44 models, and that's 3 kings. So 1 being Numenor, 1 being Minas Tirith, and 1 being Arnor. The Arnor one's gone a bit killy because he's got 3 attacks mounted a lance. And then you've got a battle line, which is basically, I just did this quick. So like you'd probably put some bows in, but 15 Moors of Minas Tirith with shield as your front line. 14 Moors of Numenor with spears and shield as your back line. And then you've got some Arnor Knights and some extra like Warriors of Arnor just filling out the warbands there. And that's 700 points, 44 models. You've got a really good battle line with banner. You've got a few cav. You've basically ticked all of the boxes for
that you want.
And it's 44 models.
Right. Ali's found a fringe list that he thinks is actually pretty good. So he is very excited to run it, and then he'll do well with it. And then he'll be like, yes, I told everyone that this was good in the very first video that we did for the new edition of SVG. That's what he's working on. It does look good, though. I mean, the Kings of Men, I think it's interesting because for 75 points, like, I think these are ones that you don't mount. I mean, like maybe the Arnor one because he'd be 4 attacks on the charge with a lance.
Yeah, so in that list I wrote, the Arnor one was mounted with a lance and shield.
Oh, in that list. So that's actually nice. But like, maybe you just give them heavy armor and shield, and then they're D7 on foot, 85 points. Like that's not that bad. But even at D5 for 75 points, like it's still a really strong place to be.
And like we haven't really touched on the bonuses that they get. Some of them are better than others, but it's like the Gondor one gets an extra might and then he gets shield wall. So he's actually a really tough to kill general at that point because he's going to be D8 if you surround him with some guys. And like he doesn't need to go off killing stuff. That's what his mate from Arnor's for.
Yeah.
So yeah. I just think it's quite solid. You can play it at any points level because
the kings are cheap.
Customize everything really nicely.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't included any captains, but obviously you can do if you really want to save points.
Yeah, because you've got March, so like they've really baked in everything you need. You've got small might,
The one limitation is you can only take 1 of each king.
I was actually, I literally just thought of that. I was like, can you take multiple of the Gondor ones? You might.
No, so if you wanted to just go in for like a Minas Tirith and like Numenor, you're probably going to end up taking a captain or something like that. Yeah. Which I mean, captains aren't bad. Like,
maybe, yeah. Any thoughts on this one, Adam?
Just really boring.
In what sense? Because I think a lot of people will find this interesting to build a list.
But look, it just reminds me of Arnor. You're basically Arnorifying other lists. Yeah, there's no Malbeth save, but you've got basically you're taking solid troops, maxing them out, putting in like a mid-level hero who's actually got 3 best heroics in the game apart from defense. yeah, I mean it's just solid 7 out of 10, isn't it? In all areas, it can shoot. It's got numbers. It's got defense. It's got
It's just
mediocre
Swiss Army
fight
knife.
value. Yeah,
Uh,
it's absolutely sort of jack of all trades, master of none. It's vanilla. It is in the hands of a good player at a 6 game tournament, probably 4-2, maybe if you're lucky 5-1. If you're unlucky, maybe 2-4, 3-3. It's like it's yeah, it's
Just
fine,
said
isn't it?
every single result apart from 0-6.
Yeah. Adam does not
I didn't say
believe
one
You
in
me.
know, you
five.
may go all of these options.
I didn't say 1-5, but I should have
Uh,
mentioned the number of draws it's going to get.
yeah.
You have
No,
explained
it's
basically
good.
Ali's favoured kind of list there, I think.
It's
Oh
good.
yeah.
You know,
It's good,
It,
but
it,
it's very uninspiring, I think.
see, I think people are going to be inspired by this.
Ali's clearly very inspired.
So
Genuinely,
the thing I like about it is you can invent fluff, and you can pick out moments from a very restricted canon that we have at the moment, right?
Yeah.
And I like that because it's probably the most creative list you can make. If we're being perfectly honest, it's the least prescriptive. I just
that's what I was
feel
actually
like the
going to
profiles are
mention.
kind of dull.
Yeah. So I was going to mention, for me, I find this the most creative because you can
Actually,
go,
Yeah, it is.
you can create whatever like time period really you want, and like your own background and stuff, which I think is really cool.
isn't that quite a depressing state that we're in now? Where
this is the only way that you can
we're
do it.
looking
Yeah.
back to the Alliance Matrix with rose-tinted glasses right now. Just the days of having freedom.
Yeah. And I used to actually say, I think when we were talking about New Edition at some point or something, on one of the previous videos, I've always said I really thought Kings of Men should be able to get a bit of a buff and stuff like that if you're doing an army with no named heroes, because then you can represent your own backgrounds or bits that aren't in the film.
Shout out to Ali to plug something he never said.
That's what I was going to say. If you are a true historian of the Gollum's Gamers, let us know what episode that was so that we can
I don't remember
if this
it.
holds true.
I think it was in one of the when we were talking about the New Edition and what
The
we were hoping
emergency
for. So,
pods.
yeah.
I did so many of those. They're all a bit of a
Just go watch every single video like 100 times just for Elliot, and then tell us which one it was.
those 3 a.m. recording sessions for the emergency pods were pretty hard. Yeah. So I think that will do it for the Realms of Men. But we shall switch gears now from a list that Ali was very fond of that Adam was maybe not, to a list that Adam was very fond of that Ali was maybe not. So we have the Last Alliance, which was only in Adam's top 5, just like the Realms of Men.
I'm gonna have to talk, aren't
In
I? Look, I'm not gonna lie, I like Realms of Men. I just think I just don't remember it that much from the film.
You're not wrong there. Although Ali and I were saying before we came on that the Realms of Men were in the Fellowship of the Ring, or the Kings of Men, sorry, were in the Fellowship.
Yes, they were. They were toasting their rings before they became wraiths.
Oh,
all
the other.
Anyway,
yes,
Last Alliance.
So for the Spotify listener, so sort of the highlights here. So obviously you've got a great battle line, as Last Alliance has always had.
Yeah.
So you're not Terra now with Kirdam, but you've still got the really strong battle line. You have the biggest heroes sort of in the game, lots of them. And with Magic being worse, overall, that's a pretty good thing. You've got some really big beat stick heroes. That's a good thing. Everything re-rolls 1s to wound, including heroes when making courage tests. That's nice.
Classic new rule, that.
You have a 1 in 6 chance to wound a model when it charges Rivendell infantry. So you roll a d6. On the roll of a 6, you wound the model that's charged you, and then it's like on a 1 or a 3, it goes down on a horse. 4, 5, 6 goes up on a rider, like a shooting in the way. So just a free chance to kill models. That's really good. And then Numenor, reroll 1s to wound when supporting or being supported by a Rivendell model. So they get a buff as well. So why did this make it into your top 5, Adam? So
from the rules you've just mentioned, it's really clear that the way you're going to build it is Rivendell frontline with shield, maybe with shield and elven spear in certain places if you want, and then some Warriors of Numenor with shield and spear behind, And then you'll sprinkle in a couple of Rivendell warriors with elf bow. And I think that's really important you do that, because if you don't, then people won't charge you. You need people to charge you. This list is basically how it was, except you can't take the horses on the two big boys. You can in Isildur, though.
Yeah.
Which something to be said. Obviously, you can take the ring. The ring is going to be even better because there are more big heroes in this edition, because there are less wraiths. Less wraiths also mean that the ring is better. So it's like a quadratic effect on Isildur. Then you've got Elendil and Gil-galad on foot. I believe Gil-galad's gone down in points. He's 175 now.
175?
Can I just tell Stephen Denby, if he's watching, and Luke Hilda, it's okay. Gil-galad will be fine, guys.
Hang in there, folks. There is help. Should you? Yeah.
Gil-galad doesn't have strike, but he doesn't need strike. He's got heroic strength. Can't believe I'm saying this. Heroic strength on Gil-galad. You heard it here first. I think that is absolutely naughty, because you've got this guy who's going to be wounding. He can actually wound on twos.
He is
probably wounding on threes.
He is 175. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, he's just going to go the whole game just slowly munching, and when there's gaps in the lines and you win a move off and he gets into your hero, that hero is on a timer. Then you got Elendil doing his stuff. I just feel like this list is basically what it was, except you don't cause terror. Yeah, fine. Círdan, the whole Círdan thing's gone. But every list, apart from the really poor ones, has been nerfed in this edition. But I feel like this list, and I haven't even gotten to the best bit yet, this list has retained itself. Warriors of Númenor got a little bit better, as they should have done.
Everything's 5 now, at least, which is...
I think Warriors of Númenor, have they gone up a point as well?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
So they went up. Yeah, and you had to pay for it. So
most things in the game have received some kind of like points inflation. So, but they have enough for it. So everything's 5/5 now. That's nice.
I mean, Rannans are only like a point behind Uruk-hai now to get. It's like, how? They're less intelligence, they're less courage, they're less... Oh no, they're the same intelligence. Yeah, less courage, less fight. It's like, what?
You said you
I just feel this...
bit. What was the best bit? You said you hadn't got
the fact that they haven't had any nerfs. I think
the fact that a sixth of your army, a sixth of the opponent's army, when they charge your front line, which they'll have to if you take bows, which you should, will just take a win. It's just bonkers.
So, I mean, Ali, why weren't you that big a fan of that and this list?
I'll start off reinforcing the positives in the list. In that, like, the heroes, all of them are going to be so much harder to stop now. I think Elrond's actually a phenomenal hero now.
I'm finally going to use Elrond, my favorite hero.
He was already solid, but now he's great. And we haven't really mentioned it, but two-hand weapons, meaning the natural 6, you don't get the -1. On someone like Elrond, who gets Lord of the West anyway, and if you've got a banner nearby and a sphere support, you're there going, I'll just go two-handed. I'm getting enough dice. Like, I'll roll a 6 with him, it'll be fine. Because you get that many rerolls. So he's Killia, he's fight 7, and at being a leader, he's got every single, like, 3 wounds, 3 attacks, 3 fate, 3 might, 3 will.
You can then take Isildur as your...
Isildur with the ring, because of the slight changes to the ring now, where you can't have multiple people in combat and get the ring benefit. He's he is the best person with the ring to do what people used to do with the ring. And it's a very solid battle line.
Yeah, you don't take Círdan, but you just take a captain. You get more warband space. I think maybe the way I'm going to look at it is maybe Elrond, Isildur captain, as many troops.
So I built a list, and this is probably going to highlight the issue. So it's just shy of 800 points, this rough list that I did. And it's Elrond on horse, Isildur on foot, Rivendell captain with shield. And it's 38 models. And you've got 10 elf bows in there.
800 points.
Yeah, to do so your shooting's pretty good. But you're only at 38 models.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's bad, but your model count's going to start.
Yeah,
You will feel it because you're not overly resilient either.
No, the thing was before is that you could have, say, like 36 models in that Last Alliance list or something, maybe even 8. Like, I'm pretty sure Jakob won the finale last year with Last Alliance at 800 with like 35 models or something, because he had the 4 heroes with a captain as well.
Just to correct, Jake Rawson won the finale last year.
Second. I've been getting that wrong so much lately. Because we've been talking about the finale.
Jakob won most sporting.
Yeah, well, sporting. We've said this so many times on the stream and everything. But yes, so you only have, say, 35 or so models, but you have Círdan, so you're much more resilient. So, but yeah, if you've got 38 with no Círdan, then it's a big problem.
If
but bear in mind, bear in mind, you're going to probably outshoot most lists. Right?
Are you at 800 points with only 10 elf bows? You won't outshoot most lists, I don't think. You'll match a lot of lists for shooting, but I don't think you outshoot them. Not in a dominant sense.
No, maybe.
The thing is, the bows, so the elf bows are still D5, which is way higher than most. Most are D4 now.
Are they?
I mean, I'm not sure. There's more D5 around now. I'm not sure.
Yeah. I'm not. As I say, I don't think this is about. Like, this is one of the lists which didn't make my list, not because it's bad, just because I think if you played on a 1,000-point game, this list is probably pretty good because suddenly you do have the points. It's the fact you have to go for 2 big heroes, which basically rules it out at low points.
Yeah.
You can't 700 points. You could probably do this list. You drop. I mean, then you start getting the awkwardness in terms of warband space and limits and stuff like that. Because so there's probably like a 600 point, 650 point army you can do with just Elrond and Thistledor or some other combination game. But yeah, it's there going. 800 points is when it starts being feasible. I think if you did 1,000 is when it actually starts being good.
It seems like Last Alliance beforehand was able to you could run a 700-point version. Where it could be a little bit trickier with this one potentially now. But I don't think it's bad either. It just didn't quite make it into my top 5. So but that is going to close us out. That is the final list that we have. So those were what we feel are some of the best lists from the good side of the new Lord of the Rings book. Let us know what you think are the best lists. Do you disagree with our picks? Do you have some other picks that maybe we didn't think of? Let us know in the comments. We will be doing the same sort of video as this one for the evil lists from the Armies of the Lord of the Rings. That'll be coming out sometime soon. Obviously, it's Christmas and things at the moment, so we're kind of recording a little bit less and stuff, but we'll hopefully have that out sometime soon. Make sure as well to check out the Into the West live stream, possibly the very first tournament ever from the new edition. Adam's going to be taking that, man. Spoiler for the preview that will be coming out. But yes, please do make sure to check out the live stream if you have a free weekend, first weekend of the year, 4th and 5th of January, for some new edition SBG tournament games. But that is going to close out. So thank you very much, everyone, for watching another episode from the Gollum's Gamers.